This is Miriam Raftery with the East County Magazine radio show on KNSJ 89.1 FM Descanso, the network for social justice. Today, my very special guest is Alexander Kraft. He's running for mayor in El Cajon, challenging longtime Mayor Bill Wells. Alexander is also a labor union leader, a community organizer, and a teacher who grew up in trailer parks on the outskirts of El Cajon, worked on a factory assembly line, and in retail while working his way through community college and later graduating from the University of California up in Berkeley. He is also a self-declared socialist challenging the Republican mayor in a race where no Democrat is running. And these are the only two candidates. Alexander, welcome to the show.
Miriam, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
It is a pleasure. So, can you start by telling us what made you decide to run for mayor of El Cajon?
Well, like a lot of people, I've always kind of said that the number one disqualification from holding public office ought to be wanting it.
Mhm.
So let me assure you, I was talked into it. But um, I've been involved in social and economic justice organizing and activism for a really long time, pretty much my entire adult life. About a year ago, the El Cajon city government made a move that was very unpopular out here, which was to pass a resolution directing its police to collaborate with ICE enforcement in violation of state law. That triggered a wave of pro-immigrant, anti-ICE organizing out here.
Right, and to
And
be clear, it was allowing them to, in theory, collaborate on deporting, or detaining and deporting immigrants, even if they had committed no crime other than maybe crossing the border, decades ago when this would be just an infraction. So it's not just, this isn't just going after immigrants who've committed a violent or serious crime. Anyway, go ahead.
absolutely, no, you're exactly right. I mean, we've been seeing that across the country. I mean,
Mhm.
they're shooting even American long citizens in down in cold blood in the street. I mean, it's really sort of
Chilling.
a nightmare scenario what we're seeing right now. But and that's why the people in El Cajon were so incensed about it and organized really across a lot of different groups and ideologies and tendencies that a lot of times and historically you haven't seen work together
Mhm.
to push back against that. And as we continued to advocate for justice in our city, we kind of looked around at each other and said, well, what's our next step? What do we do next? And the answer was, we need to start running our own candidates for office. Okay, sounds like a great idea. Mayor is coming up. Yeah, so we should do it. Okay, who should it be? So we created
Hear it.
a short list, and that list ended up being very short. But no, I'm honored to have the trust of our movement and coalition in my ability to represent their interests and the interests of all working class residents of El Cajon, whether regardless of the color of their skin, regardless of their country of origin, how long they've been here. Um, I'm proud to do it.
Very good. I want to jump ahead for a second, and I just want to mention that as a proud union member, you do have some significant endorsements. It's not just, a socialist party somewhere. You've been endorsed by the San Diego Imperial County's Labor Council. You were a shop steward, I understand, for a labor union. Uh, I love
SEIU 221.
yeah, the
Also on the executive.
Latinos in Action, other labor groups, several other political parties, the Green Party, the Peace and Freedom Party locally, and so forth, other workers groups. So there is some, you know, some support there. Can you define your version of socialism for you? It's become kind of a buzzword. The right wing will always make it sound like, my goodness, they're communists. The left wing, some of the Democrats have run as democratic socialists. Can you define your version of socialism and if that differs and how from democratic socialism and communism?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that it's funny, the definition of the word socialism has always been sort of a political football, although to
Hmm.
me, I think there's a lot of motivated reasoning there. Generally, socialists themselves have a pretty consistent agreement on what socialism means at the end of the day, which is a social, political, and economic system that's organized to prioritize the needs of regular people, working people, over private profit. And when we say private profit, we're not talking about, obviously your paycheck as a pipe fitter or a restaurant worker. We're talking
Mhm.
about billionaires, companies, corporations that are just skimming off like a gangster-like cut of every economic transaction that happens in our country and really around the world.
Mhm.
And that's really all there is to it. And I think that it's kind of funny. The incumbent has gone absolutely bonkers, and his whole sort of political camp have gone absolutely bonkers that there's a socialist in the race, and that's all that
Mhm.
they've been able to talk about. And frankly, that's fine with me because they've been so concerned about talking about the socialism and what it does and doesn't mean that they've completely ignored the actual program that our campaign is proposing
Right.
for El
Right.
Cajon.
And we're going to get into that in just a second. So you're not
Yeah.
talking about, corporate takeover of government takeover of corporations or anything like that. You're talking more about social equity for workers and programs that benefit ordinary
Well,
working people.
absolutely. We're talking about the city government of El Cajon. I don't
Right.
think that when you get sworn in, you sit down at the mayor's desk and there's a button on the desk that completely overhauls U.S. foreign policy and dissolves the Federal
Federal
Reserve.
issues, exactly. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Got it.
So I think one of the things that we're kind of trying to do with our campaign is convey to people in El Cajon, sure, your life would be better under socialism. Okay, we can have that conversation. But what this mayor campaign is really about is your life in El Cajon is going to be better with a socialist mayor. And
Hmm.
the specific policy priorities and approach to governance that I'm bringing, which we're seeing now very clearly that the left is far better at actually governing. We're seeing it in New York. We're seeing it across the country.
Interesting. And it should be noted that historically in the US, many major programs that are now very popular, such as Social Security, ending child labor, were all denounced as socialism, when they first went through. Medicare is another one. So it's interesting.
Absolutely.
It's a buzzword. You have said that you are running for El Cajon mayor on a 5-point program that includes housing, jobs and labor, immigration, infrastructure, and public safety, which are all important issues. So let's dive into those details, starting with what's your plan for housing?
Well, I almost hate it when people ask me this because it's something I'm so excited about that we can have a whole interview where I just talk about the housing plan.
Yeah.
So I'll try to keep it brief. The really cornerstone of it is direct municipal investment in social housing. So, obviously well, not obviously, a lot of people don't know this, because of the Costa-Hawkins Act, municipalities cannot directly institute rent control programs. So there's a fight against that on the state level, of course, but here in El Cajon, we can control rents in a different way
Hmm.
by directly investing in housing, and that might mean buying existing housing stock. That might mean developing housing in partnership with community land trusts and other kind of more imaginative ways of administering uh, these properties. And in so doing, because the city would be directly invested in that housing, we can choose to control our own rents without having to impose that upon private landlords. So by doing so, we can, one, directly provide truly affordable housing to the people of El Cajon. We can, two, in by introducing a rent controlled housing stock to the market, help to put downward economic pressure on housing costs throughout the city. And three, it because the again city is directly invested in that housing, it becomes a new revenue stream into the city that does not rely on taxation. So this is it's a multi-part program, has a lot of moving pieces. Each moving piece individually benefits the housing market and regular people in El Cajon,
Hmm.
independent of the others, but they all work together to form this much larger vision. So
Interesting.
it's a program that's very grounded in
Yeah.
policy, and it can really make a big difference.
Uh, you know, Related to housing is the homelessness issue, which
Yeah,
obviously is
very much.
huge in El Cajon. The mayor and the council have generally supported money for East County Transitional Living Center, which is at least a shelter of some kind, more than the county has done. And the mayor has held individual fundraisers, as a musician, helping that out. they also do a lot of clearing of homeless camps and things because the public tends to complain about, homeless encampments. So, what would your approach be to the homeless crisis?
Well, for one thing, we'd utilize all the available resources that the city has at its disposal. For instance, the incumbent just recently turned down
Yep.
a $2 million grant for homelessness assistance.
True. He
Uh,
said he said it's because he opposes the housing first, um, you know, approach without firm requirements for being clean and sober before you get any help, basically.
Well, there's nothing stopping the city or other or programs from instituting those additional requirements,
True.
and
Hmm.
programs. It's really just what he opposes is permanent long-term housing for the unhoused. He essentially prefers a model that criminalizes poverty rather than one that utilizes resources to actually help people. Look, if homelessness is the problem, the answer is housing, and that sounds simplistic because I understand that there are a lot of moving parts that go into poverty, but
Hmm.
that's the real question. The question is poverty. El Cajon is the poorest city in San Diego County, so it's no surprise that when you drive down the street, you see poor people.
Yeah.
It's if you're saying that our community has a need for substance abuse treatment programs, great, let's do that. If you're saying that our community has a need for mental health programs, great, let's do that. If you're saying that our community has a problem with housing stability, then let's, focus
Yeah,
on
I think
housing
I think they
programs.
have all of those. Yeah, exactly. How
And they
would
certainly do.
let's move on to jobs. What would you do to improve wages and bring better paying jobs to El Cajon?
Yeah, well, I mean, step one is we can raise our minimum wage to match San Diego's so that we're competitive in the job market.
Interesting.
Number two, of course, I'm a labor guy, I'm a union guy. We're going to support workers who want unions, which data shows as the kind of number one thing, not just for the unionized workers, but even for ununionized workers, that puts upward pressure on wages and working conditions for workers. And number three, we're going to incentivize businesses here in El Cajon, even with it that don't unionize, if
Hmm.
they we're going to use tax and fee incentives uh, to reward businesses that treat their employees well and give them the wages and benefits
Interesting.
that they deserve.
Do you also support project labor agreements, which incidentally La Mesa has backed unanimously, bipartisan over there, that basically says any city construction projects would have to, I believe it has to have union workers or at least pay union wages, something like that.
Yeah,
Um,
so there's two things. There's project labor agreements and there's prevailing wage agreements, and both are actually currently banned by the El Cajon City Charter. We're one of two jurisdictions in the county that still bans them, and
uh,
of course, that's going to be one of my top priorities to make sure that, well, at least that we repeal those bans, so that on a project by project basis, we can ensure that the workers who are working for our city are themselves being treated and paid fairly. And then, of course, we're going to work towards doing what, as you mentioned, La Mesa has done, and actually putting in a positive requirement for either prevailing wage agreements or project labor agreements. I mean, ideally, project labor agreements, which are the ones that specifically require union labor.
okay. Mayor Wells has, as we've mentioned, pushed for the El Cajon police to cooperate with ICE on detaining and deporting immigrants, even if they didn't commit a crime. And he's also pushed the city to sue in California, spending taxpayer money on a lawsuit over the state's sanctuary policy. How would your approach as mayor differ, and what would you try to do to heal this rift with I guess, not only the Hispanic community, but all of the immigrants and people of color who've become concerned about this treatment?
Yeah, absolutely. And at this point, El Cajon is my majority non-white. So, when we're talking about
True.
the people who are impacted by these policies, it's really everyone. And you also mentioned that lawsuit. I should also point out that it's not the only lawsuit that we're embroiled in with the city, with the state over this issue. The state also sued the city of El Cajon based on its mishandling of flock license plate reader data,
Yeah,
which it was
sharing the data
permitted.
with federal agencies so that who
Right.
knows how they might use that, perhaps for immigration enforcement.
exactly. Well, we know that they were using it for immigration enforcement. It's on record. So,
I mean, I'll
so
say the
yeah,
con side is that we do know they're solving crimes. I had a press release in today about it, but nonetheless, it's the sharing of the data that's the greatest concern, I think, for the most people.
yeah, definitely. And I mean, they solved crimes before they had Big Brother too.
Mm,
But
true.
that
True.
being said, but
Makes
but
it a
no,
little easier to catch the car thieves, but anyway, go ahead.
I think that you know, this is something that I kind of talk about a lot with this is that these policies are, they're really kind of cutting off the city's nose to spite its face because pretty much all of the recent population and economic growth in the last few years has been immigrants, refugees, and other newcomers to the city. So these
Yeah.
policies that make people feel unwelcome here are really counterproductive in terms of economic growth in our region.
Yeah, we're
But
now I should add, we're now seeing not only people who came here undocumented, but even people who came on protected status, like Haitian immigrants and some from the Middle East, being suddenly having that status taken away. And are they going to have their police cooperating to deport people who originally came here legally and where it's still unsafe, perhaps for them to go back to their home countries?
exactly, and there have been plenty of people who've been abducted and harassed just based on the color of their skin who are fully you know uh, have
Citizens.
fully legal and
Hmm.
citizens and everything. So,
Hmm.
but in terms of what I would do, I mean, yeah, I mean, basically my day one priority would be to rescind that illegal resolution directing the police to collaborate with ICE in violation of state law SB 54, replace it with a resolution directing the police to proactively protect everybody in El Cajon, regardless of the color of their skin or how long they've been here, and including from out of control totalitarian federal forces that may illegally try to operate within our city limits.
Like most candidates everywhere, Alexander, you have pledged to improve infrastructure such as roads, sidewalks, and public parks. Where would the money come from to do that?
Well, you know how much we spend on these flock cameras? I mean, it's ridiculous. It's hard to say, and we're trying to get specific answers from the city. But we're paying $264,000 a year, probably somewhere in that
Hmm.
neighborhood,
Wow.
on these deeply unpopular flock cameras. Um, and I think that I get your question. There's this kind of uh, penny wise, pound foolish. Sometimes I see it as a perspective that you need to have a dollar in for a dollar out. But we also have to look at these investments in our city and its infrastructure as
Hmm.
investments that can generate more economic activity and therefore more revenue for the city
Yeah,
downstream.
good point. Like years ago, the city, I think rather wisely, invested in really good storm drain systems. So they haven't had the flooding issues now with climate change that we're seeing in San Diego and some other areas that didn't do that. So,
Exactly. And we see the city doing things that, are, in some ways nice. These kind of beautification things they put
mhm,
in the El Cajon sign, sort of like the North Park sign
right.
over Main Street. They, painted pretty designs on some crosswalks and things like that. And
Hmm.
these are fairly large projects. There's a budget for them, but really they kind of do more to make the city look good on its own website than they do to actually make working people's lives better. So,
Good point.
there are things that we can move around. We can take money from projects that don't really accomplish anything and from projects that actively harm our community
Hmm.
and reallocate them to projects that actually help people.
Yeah. One of the big needs we hear all over for East County is another hospital because Sharp Response ER is very overcrowded. I don't know if you've ever had to be there. I have, waiting 8 hours and never getting seen, or it can be challenging. It's not Grossmont's fault. It's just that it serves all of East County. So for decades, Kaiser Hospital has promised they would build a new hospital out in East El Cajon, but they haven't done it. The city council has gotten exasperated and considered all kinds of alternatives, everything from acquiring it through eminent domain to get a hospital built by somebody, or rezoning the property for other uses like housing if they can't get a hospital there. What is your view about what to do about the lack of a hospital and Kaiser's sort of non-cooperation on this after so many years?
Yeah, I mean, look, credit where credit's due. I agree with them. We need a hospital. There used to be a hospital there years ago.
Yeah.
That extra 15 minutes that it takes people in deep East County to get to Sharp just to wait for several hours is, can be a matter of life and death.
Yes.
But I think that one of the reasons why we often see a lot of these big projects stall is
Hmm.
because the legacy politicians are so uh, irrationally married to the kind of gangsterism of capitalism that you're not allowed to do anything unless the billionaire class gets a big cut. And a lot of times that is what the holdup is with these projects. It's not that the public sector couldn't just put its foot on the gas and get it done. It's that they're too afraid of ticking off their cronies and puppet masters, if you will, in big business, because these these projects can't. The difficulty is arranging the project in a way that ensures that big business makes its millions. You know, there is such a thing as a public hospital. We don't have to write a blank check to Kaiser.
Yeah,
Um,
there used to all be nonprofit hospitals, and actually, our healthcare costs in America started skyrocketing when they took that away and let them be for profit, which is an interesting little fact people don't always know about. But anyway, how would you do that now that we have a system where that incentivizes the for-profit hospitals? How would you get a hospital built there, or do you think that that should be the priority still for that site?
I do think, I mean, honestly, like I just look, this is an issue that it matters. It's not one that I have talked really deeply with people about and really like got dug into and crunched the numbers. The
Hmm.
American healthcare system is so deeply messed up. I mean, I can't say that we have a written out plan for what we're going to do about it, but just sitting here talking to you, yeah, we definitely need a hospital in El Cajon. There used to be one there. There isn't one
Hmm. Hmm.
anymore. I think we should do what we need to do to get it. And I think that, if anything, the fact that the incumbent's been in office for 13 years and hasn't been able to do anything about it,
Hmm.
hasn't been able to make a single step forward on that project, just indicates that, I might not know every single detail of what they have tried, but I
Hmm.
know that none of it's worked, and it's time for a new perspective.
Okay. Uh, Similarly, the Parkway Plaza Regional Shopping Mall has long been a popular destination for shoppers across East County. It's one of only two malls. Grossmont's undergoing some renovations right now. But ever since the latest owners acquired Parkway Plaza a few years back, they really have opted not to invest significantly. The mall has lost some major tenants. They've got a couple of new ones, but in general, there's a lot of empty storefronts and so forth. The current mayor and the council majority have all called for steps to assure that the mall will continue to remain a retail shopping mall of some sort, although with the possibility of perhaps converting some things on the perimeter to housing or mixed use. The city has also talked recently about maybe the city should just acquire the mall to make sure that it doesn't just get, run down or torn down. What are your what are your thoughts about the future of Parkway Plaza?
This one really kind of cracks me up because you asked earlier about the definition of socialism. And let me
Mhm.
tell you something. Of all the things people say socialism might be, the government directly acquiring a running business and operating it itself, that's about as close to the definition of socialism as you get. So hats
Interesting.
off. Um, but
Okay, so if they get their way, they're doing a socialist program there. Okay.
Yeah, but what's kind of interesting about this is these plans these plans for acquisition and redevelopment were floated about a year ago, and the city really kind of abandoned them. The reason why they're getting back in front of the news cameras talking about this
Hmm.
again without any real concrete plans for it is because they caught wind that our campaign was developing a comprehensive redevelopment plan for Parkway Plaza.
Interesting. And what would your plan include? Would it still have some retail to it, or would it have
There
be
would
mixed use, or what?
Yeah, it's definitely retail. It's pedestrian oriented, walkable sort of park district with
Hmm.
mixed use and mixed income housing
Cool.
integrated throughout it, drawing transit in. And it's also it's a phased plan. So we've got a full deployment strategy that
Hmm.
enables us to, acquire and develop the property in pieces. You might not know this, but actually it's already carved up into there's like three different owners of the Parkway Plaza
I do
complex.
know that, and my understanding is that there's one set in particular that's just not wanted to spend any money, but you know,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, under the incumbent's leadership, Parkway Plaza has fallen into decline. They were unable to even keep the Walmart there, parasitic entity that it is. At this point, losses from its current state are $10 million annually.
wow. And yet it
So
is a significant, we should point out that sales tax is a significant revenue generator for the city. So the
it
idea
is.
some people have had of maybe we should just let it be torn down and become something else, become, housing or offices, that takes away a major revenue source from the city, in addition to, shopping and gathering opportunities, for the
Yeah.
community.
Well, when you look at how much of the complex is currently empty, you walk through it and it's, I mean, by my estimate, about, 50% empty storefronts. And then a lot of what does have stuff in there is kind of like a pop-up shop, sort of
Hmm.
like street fair stalls at this point,
Yeah.
which, I love their entrepreneurial spirit, but this is not, these are not anchor stores.
Right.
So our plan, part of what we've been doing is talking to retailers there, working with them, ensuring that in our redevelopment plan that the amount of actually utilized retail space currently is going to be more or less equal, and
Hmm.
we're going to ensure that business owners who want to continue operating in that space will not experience significant disruptions to their operation. So they'll be able to move into the retail spaces that we're going to be putting in. And in addition to
Hmm.
that retail space, we're going to be adding in thousands of new housing units, um, civic structures, parks, and recreational facilities. It's a huge
Nice.
piece of land. It's
Hmm.
being
It is.
tragically underutilized. And for again, this kind of old-fashioned thinking of just that the incumbent is going to come along with his property developer buddies and just buy it and do a better job of running it than the people who already have been when it's been going in decline under their watch is
Hmm.
just kind of ludicrous. We need to do something different.
There you go. Another thing that we have seen in the past year in El Cajon has been cuts or even termination of some very popular public events, including cancellation of Haunt Fest, paring back the number of outdoor concerts and car shows. All of this, even after they brought in, some outside management company that was going to make things, bigger and better. Do you believe that these events, or perhaps other kind of events like bringing back the Friendship Festival or the Mother Goose Parade or something, are these kinds of events important to serve the families and other residents in El Cajon? And if so, how can that happen?
Yeah, I do. I think very much so. And it's part of the kind of unique cultural character of El Cajon that makes it such a special place to live for
Yeah.
those of us who are from here. I have such fond memories of the International Friendship Festival and
Hmm.
the ethos that it brought, and it's really
Yeah.
kind of indicative of how really mythical this idea of El Cajon as like a radically right-wing sort of haven of white supremacy is, that we used to have this internationalist, multicultural celebration.
Yeah, I mean,
And
I will say to the credit of the people on the council, they actually over the years did spend more money funding more actual public events than any of the other cities in East County did. I think that was one of the things that a lot of them got right. But there's been federal budget cuts, state budget cuts, it trickles down, and obviously El Cajon is having a crunch right now. Nonetheless, it's good to hear what are your priorities if the money's available as
yeah,
far as these
absolutely.
events.
I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it. And again, it kind of comes back to a question of priorities. Again,
Mhm.
the estimates differ, but I've been hearing numbers of like that the city's going to save 75,000 maybe to $125,000 not doing the Haunt Fest. First of all, what the heck are they spending that much money on? That's mostly independent exhibitors. So, I
Yeah,
mean,
suing the
would a porta
state,
potty
I don't
cost that much?
know. Yeah, defending lawsuits.
Right, right. But even if that is how much the event costs, again, I mean, we're spending $22,000 a month on these flock cameras that people don't even want. So there is a certain prioritization that has to happen. you know, they want to buy the mall and keep running a failing business, more or less the way that it already has been. And yet, again, they can't afford to, have Haunt Fest for kids. So actually, our campaign, the Craft for Mayor campaign, is
Mhm.
going to be holding a Halloween event to take Haunt Fest's
Oh,
place.
how nice. Well, you'll have to send
Yeah,
us the when and where, and we'll get the word out.
I
Um,
will. I will.
Revenue is a big issue right now with this budget crunch that we've mentioned. I will say in the past, Mayor Wells spearheaded some efforts to bring in revenues to help fund all those, outdoor concerts and events and stuff by attracting car dealerships and hotels to the city, and then, the hotel occupancy taxes and the sales taxes from those could be used to generate revenues for, I guess, a lot of different things potentially. So my question for you is, we've talked a lot about spending priorities, and getting rid of flock cameras or cutting them down would only go so far. But what ideas do you have to actually increase revenues for the city to fund the priorities of your own as well as the communities?
Yeah, well, the big picture answer to that question is always the same. We've seen for decades that that an economics of austerity is penny wise and pound foolish. The tighter you pull the belt, the less economic activity there is in the region, and the more your revenues dry up downstream. By investing in our city and in our people, by increasing wages, by keeping housing costs down, we can put more money in working people's pockets, which they can put back into our local economy. The more people are shopping, the more people are eating downtown, the more people are able to buy a new car, perhaps, the more those revenues are going to be generated. So it's not just a question of the percentage that's coming out of people's paycheck or the percentage that's coming out of each sales transaction. It's also a question of the volume of transactions that are happening as a result of an overall more prosperous city, right?
Yeah.
But in addition to that, right,
Mhm.
these legacy politicians, they lack imagination, right? All they can think about is terms of, you know, these tax revenues and these expenditures, right? Whereas again, and he's starting to get it, sort of copying our homework with Parkway Plaza, this, let's be honest, right? Socialist perspective of the city government actually getting involved in initiatives that generate their own revenue. And once again,
Yeah.
our housing plan, it involves a component of direct revenue coming back into the city as
Mhm.
from these
Yeah.
these
Well,
housing
with
stock.
Parkway Plaza, it seems to me that what I haven't seen done is polling the citizenry, the residents of El Cajon or even beyond, to say, what do you want? What would it take for you to come back to Parkway Plaza? Maybe it's building a brewery. Maybe it's bringing in a nicer department store, something else, maybe a roller skating rink. But finding out, what is it that people want to spend money on and would be willing to come to the mall to do?
Exactly. And I think that's why our plan for Parkway Plaza is so much better, because we're not just talking about buying a failing business and then riding it into the dump. We're
Hmm.
talking about investing in and improving a business and housing district that's going to revitalize the area, right, and generate more economic activity, which we will then municipally be, receiving
Interesting.
revenue from.
Yeah, very interesting idea. Um, You have been involved as a community organizer in various reform efforts in El Cajon and actually across our region. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm one of those people that, some people have their big aha moment where they get into politics and activism, and for
Mhm.
me, it's hard to put my finger on. I was, involved in clubs and stuff in school. I got out of high school right around the beginning of the Second Gulf War and jumped right in as an activist, just attending marches and rallies against the war, for gay marriage, against police brutality. I've just been involved, and as I spent more time in that environment, as I read more, learned more, worked more, just got progressively more and more involved until I stopped calling myself an activist and started calling myself an organizer. I now sit on the executive board of my union, SEIU 221. I'm a
Hmm.
delegate to the San Diego and Imperial Counties Labor Councils.
Hmm.
I've been working really hard, rolling my sleeves up, fighting and winning for working people
Yeah.
in the labor movement, as well as in community organizing against police brutality for trans and
For,
LGBTQ rights.
for feeding the homeless, being able to feed the homeless in a public park, and some immigration things I saw on your website.
That's right. Yeah, here in El Cajon, in response to a hepatitis A outbreak amongst the poorest and unhoused population in El Cajon, our
Hmm.
city government, specifically the incumbent's
Hmm.
response, you might think would be to open the long closed park bathrooms and provide sanitary and health interventions for our poorest residents. Instead, they chose to ban sharing food and feeding the hungry. So in coalition with several other individuals and organizations, I participated in an act of civil disobedience, feeding the hungry in Wells Park every week until that ban was rescinded. And several activists were actually arrested
I remember
the week
that.
before they rescinded the
Yeah,
ban.
exactly, exactly. Um, Tell us a little bit more about you mentioned you had an interesting story about your educational background. Tell us a little bit about that and also what you taught and where you taught it with your teaching degree.
Yeah, definitely. So, I do have a really interesting educational journey. Like so many working class people and poor people, school just uh, didn't end up, high school didn't end up being my top priority. I actually left high school
Hmm.
early. I actually even, I didn't even get a GED or test out. I just left.
Wow.
I had other things that we needed to worry about. I started working right away. Um,
At the factory
my
assembly line, I read.
Yeah, that's right. Taylor Guitars right here in El
Oh,
Cajon. Yeah,
okay.
and several other things. I worked retail. I worked in a tobacco store. I worked in restaurants, things like that. Just just pretty regular working class story. But the whole time, I was taking classes where I could fit them into my schedule at community colleges. I've been to just about every community college in town. I've been to City, Mesa, Cuyamaca, Grossmont, Southwestern, uh, and ultimately, I was able to transfer to UC Berkeley. Um, Graduated top of my class with honors, got an award for
Good for you.
best honors thesis, all that good stuff. And
My son too. Go Bears. There you go.
yeah, go Bears, absolutely. So yeah, in my 30s, and
Wow.
so yeah, I took that and yeah, got involved in teaching, which had kind of been a long-term ideal of mine.
Hmm.
I was teaching in independent schools. I taught at the Bishop's School as a staff substitute. I was there
This was
most days.
elementary and middle school, I believe. Is that right?
Middle and high school.
Middle and high
Yeah,
school, sorry. Hmm.
private middle and high school in La Jolla. Now, of course, private schools, you're not really, it has its pros and cons. You're able to really focus on pedagogy and academics. At the same time, a lot of us went into teaching because we wanted to sort of help people who needed it. And
Hmm.
there are sort of sometimes that's more of a question mark for that. But I definitely enjoyed my time there. But COVID really disrupted education.
Sure did. Yeah.
Particularly for those of us who weren't fully established and full-time
So that's when
jobs. And
you shifted into other gears, so
yeah,
to speak.
yeah. So now I'm
You mentioned tobacco, Alexander. El Cajon has been at the forefront. Well, let me backtrack a bit. They've had a problem of a high percentage of the merchants being caught repeatedly selling tobacco to minors, and they have one of the state's strictest ordinances to prevent that and to crack down on merchants who do that. There's been a lot of money, I know, going sometimes into candidates who want to repeal that.
yeah.
Where do you stand on that? Would you be for continuing to be strict with businesses that sell tobacco to minors?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, yeah, the incumbent and his kind of right-hand guy on the city council, you're exactly right. They've accepted donations from the tobacco sellers and then have turned around and opposed stricter penalties for selling tobacco to minors. Um, and it's funny. And look, I say this as a longtime veteran of the tobacco industry. Like I said, I worked in a high-end pipe and cigar store
Mhm.
for many years. I actually envisioned a future career in the tobacco business during the time when I was there. So, take it from me when I say it's a darn good thing that smoking rates have cratered. They're as low as they are. We're at a point where we're pretty much ready to strike a killing blow on this just absolute scourge, public health scourge on regular people. And again, I say this as a guy who smokes a cigar once in a while, but we're talking
Yeah,
about an
but that's a
addictive.
consenting adult thing as opposed to somebody who's
Exactly.
15 being able to tap someone on the shoulder and say, "Hey, would you buy me some cigarettes?"
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they managed to keep their hooks into young people with vaping and now
Yeah.
we're starting to see old-fashioned cigarette consumption rise again amongst young people and it's tragic, it's just a health issue.
Hmm.
And I can't imagine again, the incumbent is taking these incredibly unpopular positions for sort of inscrutable or really actually transparently selfish reasons when I can't think of a a bigger political slam dunk than protecting kids from smoking.
There you go. This is not the only race on the ballot for El Cajon voters. There is also an open council seat because of, unfortunately, Councilman Kendrick having some heart health issues and having to bow out of the race. I'm curious, are you endorsing anybody in the race to fill that council seat? Who would you rather see on the race if you were to be on the days with you if you were to be elected?
Yeah, I want to definitely take the moment to say, I'm really sending my best wishes to Gary Kendrick,
Yeah.
longest serving Republican elected official or actually elected official period in the county, and he changed his political affiliation recently, which he absolutely did not have to do
Hmm.
as a matter of conscience. So, really, my hat's off to him in standing up against the creeping rise of totalitarianism in our our country and in our region. In terms of the campaign for to replace him, um, I think that it's it's not a tough question. In terms of principles,
Hmm.
it's pretty clear to me that this young guy, Osama Bayadi, he's putting his money where his mouth is in terms of principles. He's not allowing himself to be bought. He is willing to bring some new, fresh energy into our local politics and really stand up for what's right. I know Patrick Griot.
He's, I
I
believe
get
that
along with
Patrick, I
him.
believe, is the president of the East County Democratic Club, and then the
He's
third candidate in the race is a Republican,
okay.
Mr. K, who is a retired police chief from Coronado.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
I know Patrick Rio. I like him. His heart's in the right place, and I think that definitely having the official Democratic Party endorsement means that he's got a lot of advantages in that race.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, the less said about Chuck K, the better. I think his record speaks for itself. And if you're the sort of person who likes that kind of thing, you'll vote for him. And if you're the sort of person who doesn't, it's really a choice between Bayadi and Griot. I mean, what I really hope
Hmm.
is that race is not so hotly contested that we end up where a majority of people in El Cajon want a progressive option, but can't decide which
Which one?
they have and end
Yeah.
up just electing Chuck K instead, would be what the minority of people in that district actually want, which would be a shame. But I
Yeah.
mean, to me, yeah, it's not really.
Running against an entrenched Republican incumbent, or an incumbent of any kind, really, is a daunting task that customarily requires having some strong local issues, maybe financial backing for things like mailers and signs, as well as those boots on the ground, walking precincts, manning phone banks, and so forth. So I want to ask you, as a candidate who isn't endorsed by either of the major parties, what is your strategy for winning this race?
Well, it's old-fashioned retail politics. It's boots on the ground, exactly as you say. We have a really energized and vibrant volunteer base who has been knocking on doors multiple times a week. We're making phone calls. We are talking to our neighbors and relatives, and that's how we're going to do it. Because the fact of the matter is that we have a winning message and a winning program. And if we can make sure that everybody in El Cajon hears about it, we know that we're going to win. The question is making sure that everyone knows about it because you're exactly right. Uh, there. Let's just talk about a mailer. Let's just talk about a mailer.
Mhm.
You know how much a stamp costs. If you want to send a mailer to, there's 100,000 people in El Cajon, and
Oh,
you want
yeah.
to send a mailer to all of them, think about how much we're talking about there. So
Plus the
our
printing costs, the design costs, the layout costs, the union labor costs if you have a use a union shop for it. So yeah, it's very expensive.
Yeah, it's very expensive.
Mhm.
And it's honestly, it's a way that working people are sort of locked out of politics. We're doing it on a shoestring budget. Our average donation size is very small. It's between like $50 and $100, but
Mhm.
we're getting a lot of them. And we're doing as much as we can, just rolling up our sleeves and doing it ourselves. But there are certain things that do just kind of sort of cost money.
Yeah.
So I'd
I mean, we
encourage
have
any listeners.
we have seen in East County races, it isn't always the candidate with the most money wins. We've certainly seen some upsets in the past where somebody who had the boots on the ground or a strong message or was out there on social media, could pull it off. So you never know. Where can people find out more about you and your candidacy, Alexander?
Definitely. Well, I would invite people to check out, of course, our website at craftformayor.com.
Hmm.
You can also find us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Our Instagram is the most active, at craft, the number four, uh,
Hmm.
craft for mayor or craft for El Cajon. Oh my goodness. This is making me look really bad. You
Okay,
know what?
I've
Google
got it.
Alexander Kraft. You'll find it.
I've got it here. It's craft4mayor.com. It's not the number four. It's actually craft, KRAFT, FORMAYOR.com. Um,
That's the website, and then on the social media,
yeah, that I don't know.
it is at Craft for Mayor. Uh, oh boy, can we cut this? Can we edit a little bit?
I can't on the audio. I
Anyway,
can't on video, but
it's all
anyway,
right.
craft for mayor.
But you can look us up,
If you go on the
and
website, I think they probably have the links to the
there are
social
links.
media on
Yeah,
there.
there are
So,
links on the social.
uh, folks, if you tuned in a little bit late, we have been speaking with Alexander Kraft. He is a candidate running for mayor against the incumbent mayor of El Cajon, Bill Wells. Alexander, I'm going to give you the last word today. What else would you like our audience to know about you and your candidacy for mayor?
Well, I just want people to know that I am not accountable to any big parties in Sacramento or Washington. I take my marching orders from you, the people of El Cajon. The first question that we're asking on the doors is what is an issue that matters to you, that you'd like to see the mayor tackle? And that's what's guiding our campaign. We're here to raise wages, get housing costs down, and to build a durable movement for working class people to advocate for their own self-interest in El Cajon. So that's why it's so important that you get involved with our campaign. Sign up to volunteer, donate if you can, because it's not just about getting me into office. It's about getting a mouthpiece for working class issues on the city council and to build an organization, not just an electoral organization, but an organization that's going to continue on for people in El Cajon to advocate for the things that matter to them and to get them done, not by asking nicely from people in power, but by building our own working class power and demanding it.
Very good. And folks, we will be putting this interview up. If you're listening on KNSJ Radio, we will also be putting the full interview up on our website at eastcountymagazine.org. We've been speaking with Alexander Kraft, the socialist candidate for mayor running against incumbent Bill Wells. Alexander, I want to thank you very much for taking the time to join us today on the East County Magazine radio show on KNSJ 89.1 FM Descanso, the network for social justice.
Thanks so much, Miriam. I had a great time.
Okay.